This is episode 54 of the Wilderness Locals podcast. On this episode, my guest is Darryn Epp. Darryn is a photographer, hunter, and conservationist. Darryn is involved with many conservation organizations and plays a critical role in citizen science. This podcast is brought to you by Kifaru International, the toughest hunting gear on the planet, bar none. Frontiersman gear, high quality, completely custom, handmade knives made in the heart of the Peace Country. And as always, we're brought to you by Just Shooting Arrows, BC's premier archery shop. You're kind of one of those guys that anytime you see a cool photo of a sheep, a goat, or anything else, if you look at the photo credit, it says Darryn Epp on it.
Well, it's kind of one of my favorite subjects. Not that I don't love bears and all kinds of cool things, but certainly the mountain ungulates tend to have that mystique to them because of, certainly what they survive in order to sustain their populations. Anybody that tends to be drawn to wild places, it's pretty hard to deny the allure of the mountains and the animals that live there. So that's kind of the draw for me.
Yeah, no kidding. So I normally start these things by saying, who are you? What do you do? And how did you get started hunting? And I think I would maybe change the middle part of that question to, how do you do as much as you do? Like I said, I mean, your photos are everywhere. And then I don't think there's a wild sheep goat alliance or any other thing that you're not involved in at a higher level than just being a member.
Well, my name is Darryn Epp. Contrary to popular belief, I do not do photography as a full-time career. It is just an escape from reality of normal life and a place where I like to de-stress, probably. I'd work in oil field, actually, typically as an inspector. I work mostly doing plant shutdown planning at the moment as a contractor. And one of the blessings of that is that I get to work on a 14 and 14 schedule currently. So it does certainly allow for that side element of doing photography. I certainly am a hunter. I am a fisher person, and I love that lifestyle, though certainly the photography is a bridge between that and most seasons where we can hunt. It allows me to get into the field on a regular basis, enjoying the things that we love so much. So that's kind of where my time is spent, I guess. I certainly have a passion for the conservation end of things because I understand how important all of the pieces are in ensuring that we have wildlife and habitat in the future to enjoy as much as I have in my lifetime. So I certainly am involved in a lot of those organizations that you mentioned, primarily the mountain species. I'm a life member of just about every wild sheep chapter affiliate that there is. And also, like you say, the Goat Alliance, I'm a life member there, number 2 life member of them. And
Nice.
serve on their board of directors to kind of steer the boat on all of the exciting stuff that they have going on right now.
Nice. Very cool. How did you get into hunting? Did you grow up hunting or?
Actually, surprisingly, family is not hunting oriented at all. I do have uncles and stuff that did do some hunting, but didn't. Since I'm a product of the province of Manitoba, and we moved very early in life to Alberta. I didn't get to spend much time with my uncles and stuff that did hunt, so it was kind of generated internally, and I pursued it with friends of mine in Alberta here at a very early age. As soon as we could, you know, cart around pellet guns and such on the back of our bikes and go to remote places close to town and stuff, and start pursuing all kinds of small game. We did such, and that certainly led to this overall life pursuit of hunting, and now quite a bit of photography too. And I see them as a very similar activity, just with different outcomes typically. So.
Very cool. And being from Alberta, you spent a lot of time out west too. I mean, me and you actually just met at the most recent, or the not the most recent, the first Chilliwack Goat Count.
Yeah, I love BC, and a lot of the stuff, obviously, that I chase is mountain oriented. So there's lots of favorite places that I have in BC to take photos, and I am quite active typically with the Wild Sheep Society BC as well, do some of their online social stuff, and do all of the stuff for Goat Alliance as well. So yeah, I'm very involved with a lot of the biologists and vets and such in BC, and love it. I lived there for a very short time back in my earlier years with my parents as well. So the allure is there. I often consider moving there, but the cost of living is a little bit challenging there. So it keeps me here, and obviously work also sort of retains me to Alberta, but I certainly get there often, and just about every time that I have days off, I do spend in BC somewhere.
That's awesome. So growing up in you said growing up in Manitoba, right?
I was born there, probably left there at age 5 or something. So very little.
So growing up in Alberta then, what was your first kind of mountain hunt?
Probably, just in about the time later in high school, a friend of mine and myself, we did some bighorn sheep hunts. That would be certainly considered the first mountain hunts that we had done. In Alberta, we are very limited, and throughout my life, anyways, with goat hunts, as they are on or were on a lottery system. So the opportunity was very small. And now this year they have totally gotten rid of it because of population issues. Just involved in trying to connect with some of the people in Alberta right now to figure out where we're going from here, basically. But bighorn sheep hunting in Alberta is over-the-counter tag still, so I have done quite a few bighorn sheep hunts. I haven't successfully harvested one myself, but I have been involved in such with some success, and have put my hands on some Alberta horns. Cool.
Yeah. Wasey, one of the kind of co-hosts or contributors to the podcast here, he's in Central Alberta too, and he grew up doing those sheep hunts, and he said it's just such a small area in Alberta that holds sheep. Hey.
It is pretty limited. So much of it is adjacent to national parks or provincial parks, which don't allow hunting. So given the pressure of the resident hunt and outfitted hunts, the success rate in Alberta is very low for especially for resident hunters, and the pressure is certainly very high. So it's though it is a over-the-counter tag, the chance of being successful with bighorns in Alberta is relatively small.
Mm-hmm. When you were a resident in BC, did you chase some sheep here?
It was during a very sort of junior middle school type season in my life, so I wasn't at liberty to do so at that time, especially considering my parents did not hunt. So,
yeah, you're not going to ride your bicycle up there.
No, not so much.
Hey, so one of the things you were kind of just touching on there was trying to connect with the people involved in game management in Alberta with the goat thing. Given how much conservation work you do and how involved you are in all of that, I've always wondered, what's it like to connect as as being a representative of one of these conservation organizations with kind of the government biologists and the people making the decisions and the regulations, because that's often something that comes up is like, who's making the final call on this stuff, and what does that look like, and what does it look like for us to communicate with them?
I think one thing that fortunately that I've been involved with is photography, and that's created this huge connection to a variety of different end user groups, and one being wildlife management groups, and has allowed me to have connectivity into those arenas, which would be a struggle otherwise, I believe. And so currently I've been involved in a couple of ways in Alberta. The goat scenario is one of them that I've started to engage. We're trying to connect with the goat specialist in Alberta for the province, and also the federal national parks representative for ungulates, and try to understand sort of what the challenges are, and if there's any way that our organization as the Goat Alliance can do any work to or supply any funding potentially if it's required to kind of change the trajectory of the situation in Alberta. Mm-hmm. Certainly habitat is a limiting factor, and I think that with user groups and industry, it's certainly part of the equation. Predators in general tend to be sort of part of the equation, but I think the overall impacts in Alberta are typically going to be, I suspect, climate change in a way, and the impacts of people. I think there's no doubt that we have an impact, and I think we learn more and more. I know, sort of, given that last survey we did in Chilliwack, one of the major factors that we were trying to delineate is the amount of recreation in that particular area, and and the impacts that it has, not only at what we can see at surface level, but the overall impacts that it has longer term in moving those goats out of prime habitat for feeding, and moving them to less desirable places where they have a harder time storing foods for winter and such. So I guess it's about education. I guess we certainly, as the Goat Alliance and Wild Sheep Society BC and a lot of the other conservation groups, a lot of the outreach is with education, and that's something we're trying to really grow right now with the Goat Alliance. we're in the process of lining up some additional education work with a company that you know fairly well in BC called Silvercore. They do a lot of online training and stuff, and we're just currently having them as a sort of a sponsor, corporate sponsor, and doing some work with them. And cool. And we're trying to really align with a lot of the jurisdictions and stuff to provide any education material that we can help them or help their the people of their states and provinces to make good choices for, especially for goats, where selection of sex is difficult because male and female of the species look very similar. So that's kind of one of our targets, and something that I'm involved in quite a bit at a level, especially with social media, to try to communicate as much as I can, because I'm sort of linked with a lot of the photography community. I can provide a lot of that image displayed through many people's fine photography work, and we can help hunters and general conservationists to understand better the difference between sexes of goats.
Mm-hmm. How fun are those goat quizzes that you're posting on the RMGA Instagram page? Holy smokes. Like, I think every time you post one, I probably get it sent to me like 20 or 30 times by different buddies, you know?
Well, I think, it's especially as a photographer, they're very challenging because obviously as a two-dimensional image, you only see a certain part of the picture, and it's nice to be able to use that part of the picture as a quiz in order to really stimulate people's thoughts, and it's certainly something that is relative to some of the stuff that you would see in real life, but at the same time, there's so much that you see in real life that goes beyond that one image to add to the ability to understand the full picture, and that's what we try to communicate. That you have to really realize that one view typically is not the answer or an affirmative selection of species or of sex, because it sometimes doesn't tell you enough, and it can sometimes be very deceiving, as we find through these quizzes, where often people that are very well educated and experienced with goat sexing even get it wrong, and there's reasons for that. It's difficult. So,
yeah, I mean, I point a lot of folks to the Goat Alliance page. Right on the main page, you guys have a identifying billies and nannies RMGA educational video, it's labeled as, but it's phenomenal. I think it might be one of the best resources online, right?
Yeah, it was very well produced, and it is sort of a mainstay of what we have created in the past, and hopefully here with this joining with Silvercore, we're going to enhance that a little bit. We're going to go beyond the surface techniques that we'd use for sexing, and we'll go into more of the individual testing and use of more images and such, that we can further enhance that ability to educate people in that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. How I'm trying to think of how to word the question. In Chilliwack, how did you think the goat count went? I mean, it was, I think it was the hottest day of the year so far, which I don't think helped anything.
Actually, this afternoon I have a meeting with the biologist and Jeff and Lee to go over the results of that. Certainly, I would say, based on what we had come out with results of, it's going to be a little bit difficult to use that one as a true judgment of the population in that area. We have some anecdotal evidence that there are more than what we counted based on other observations. So I think that went very well. I think organizationally, the volunteers that we received and used for that event were substantial. We had a lot of great influence there. And Jeff Augustino certainly did a very noble job of connecting those people, organizing the areas of that event, and ensuring that everybody returned safely from that event. So I think undoubtedly for our first experience in Canada, that was a marked success. Unfortunately, like you said, the weather certainly did play a factor in it, and we'll have to discuss in this meeting exactly what we're going to do with the results based on that factor that we really didn't have much influence on. The Goat Alliance also did approve some funding for a follow-up flight survey for that same area. So that should happen in this month, I believe. So we will get a little bit more follow-up information as well. And it sounds like the biologist from that area wants us to do follow-up surveys annually to also supplement the information. So it's as most people in that general industry know, you can't always count on individual surveys to give accurate results because it's similar to hunting. It's just the way it is. Sometimes nature plays its part. There are factors beyond certainly our control that influence the way animals behave. So I think most importantly, it was a success due to the people that were involved, and it's something we hope to do more of in the BC area for sure. And I'm suspecting we'll at some point as we progress in Alberta here with talks with game managers, we'll end up doing some in Alberta as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a good point to give Jeff some kudos here. I mean, he's a young guy with a fire burning in his belly, and he's passionate about this stuff, man. Jeff's somebody I talk to every single day, and I mean, I don't think we go many hours without talking about this stuff, but yeah, like Jeff did an excellent job, and everybody was stoked to be there. It was really cool. It was really, really cool to see.
Yeah, we've also, with the Goat Alliance, started to develop a program called Regional Representatives to try to gain a little bit more exposure to all the jurisdictions that hold goats and the connectivity with those wildlife managers in those areas to understand the unique situations, problems, and areas that we can help in all those regions. And Jeff was the first official regional representative that we have taken on with the Goat Alliance, and we can't be more happy with his performance as, like you say, as a young guy. His drive and his maturity and stuff really shows strongly, and we appreciate him lots, and hope that he will also help the rest of the regional representatives that we select be successful in their regions as well.
That's really cool. The funding for the helicopter survey, I mean, that's phenomenal that you guys got that done.
Yeah, we've got, in our last meeting, we approved 4 different funding requests. Some of them, one of them, Alberta, that one in BC. I think there was one in Utah, and the other was in Montana. So the money definitely gets spread around. We have a conservation committee formed with very knowledgeable and astute scientists and biologists that direct the board of directors in decision making of how to spend that funding money. And that was certainly one of the important funding requests that we saw, trying to align the validity of our ground surveys with follow-up helicopter survey. We have done that in Montana as well to create these like valid results of ground surveys, and sometimes even better results from ground surveys than helicopter surveys, depending on the sensitivity to goats in certain regions. So it's very interesting working with this group in the conservation committee, because they hold a lot of very important positions and a lot of knowledge and experience, and we are more than thankful for their input in every decision that we make.
Yeah, it's very cool. So I guess I mean, one of the normal things I would ask here is what's the biggest threat to goats? And I think you kind of touched on it. I think from my perspective, it's probably a mixture of people recreating and climate change, right?
Yeah, I think, certainly I would go even one step further and say that certainly wildlife managers are put into a position, especially in Canada, where funding tends to be only applicable to the highlighted animals or species. Goats tend to be kind of in the background, in the limelight. So a lot of times where it's important to have accurate and current survey information to make decisions doesn't happen because of lacking information. So though wildlife managers do their best with the information that they have, even the potential of overharvest from hunters is such that it could have negative impact because game managers potentially don't have accurate information about varying populations in their regions. So certainly, like you say, or like I'd mentioned, recreation is something that is becoming more and more of an influence that it's harder to put a finger on exactly the impacts of, but we're starting to do more studies to do with that. And we actually sponsored one in Cathedral Park in BC to
cool.
discover the impacts of human recreation as well as helicopter interference. It's something that we certainly will be getting more involved in. I know our conservation committee is interested in putting together a directive, I guess, on that and a statement. A lot of them are members of the Wild Sheep and Goat Council, and they work collectively with many jurisdictions to come up with these statements of concern. And so it's certainly, I think, one of the elements that we're going to see more of in the future, and try to create a little education for outback country users, and to understand the impacts that they have, even though it's, like I say, really hard to delineate based on a one-time encounter with a goat in the backcountry. The impacts that it has in moving them from prime habitat and stuff is something that's longer term and needs to be understood. Climate change for sure, and we're working with the government of BC right now with their natal program to try and understand a little bit also about the impacts of climate change and the kidding and lambing changes that they're seeing with our citizen science programs, to help them sort of collect that data as well. So.
Very cool. I actually had Laura Balix on from the Cathedral Park study a few podcasts ago. I should have made that connection. She's super cool, super cool, and it was awesome to chat with her. Our RMGA is doing some great things, and I think if folks aren't a member, they should go check it out. It's very affordable, and everybody's doing good stuff over there.
Yeah, we got some really interesting stuff coming up in the future here. We're certainly partnering with a bunch of really big name sponsors, and going to try and get some technology into some of the stuff we're doing based on some of these partnerships. Like we had mentioned at that last goat survey, we are now trying to deal with the publication of a book that was given to us by the late Dr. Valerius Geist, that unfortunately passed just a couple of days ago. He had donated a book for us to use as a method of fundraising and education to the goat hunting community. So we're trying to also, at the same time, partner with anybody interested in our community to get this publication going and get that information out there and let his legend live on, I guess, too, at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He was a very cool guy too. I mean, there's many places folks can go and listen to him and read his work. I refer to it sometimes on here. You know, some of the books that he wrote are just like mind blowing cool. You know, like what's the one of Sheep and Man, and I always laugh about the part where they're talking about flying in and trying to figure out how to keep their bread wet or their bread dry, rather. They're worried about keeping full loaves of bread dry in the backcountry. It's like awesome. Different times, eh?
Yeah, they lived in a time where science was a lot more difficult to generate than it is now, and they lived in some pretty harsh conditions, and you know, they came out with results that were real, and I think, you know, to his credit, he stayed strong in some of his observations and opinions to the end, even though politically some of it didn't mesh with the warm and fuzzies of our current environment, especially when it comes to predator management. And I think a lot of the community now really respects him for that, even though you know, it's a fight that we're fighting at the moment to bring that reality into the wildlife management arena, and try to keep it there so that we can do things responsibly as we know they should be.
Mm-hmm. That brings up an interesting point, and it's a topic of discussion that kind of needs to be had, and it's I think it's one of the topics that I think folks get the most pushback on. It is predator management and how we frame a lot of this stuff, right?
Certainly, it is the hot button of our age currently, and it is the method at which I'm sure a lot of the organizations that are very anti-hunting will start to pick slowly away at a lot of the other species that they would like to see closed, just because of the element that they consider to be trophy hunting, and it will slowly work away as a cancer from below. And unfortunately, the balance of nature cannot be performed in our current age without some strong resolve from wildlife managers to push back against a lot of the political interference in such. And it's concerning, and that's the unfortunate part about losing individuals like Dr. Geist is he was the kind of person that would not succumb to the political interference, and knew that succumbing to such would lead to very catastrophic results in imbalance, and so. Hopefully, our future generations will also have key individuals like him that will carry the torch in representing the future of wildlife and habitat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no kidding. That's well said. It's one of those topics that we talk about all the time on here, and it's it goes sideways quickly in a lot of these different conversations and a lot of different people we chat with, and you hear guys say it all the time, but a lot of us are all in the same boat, and some folks are just shooting holes in the bottom of it by kind of not being on the same page, and I don't know. That's a rabbit hole we could go down all on its own, but I'd love to get into some sheep stuff now.
Okay. I'm game.
Yeah, right. I mean, the doom and gloom stuff isn't that fun, and I think most of the folks listening to this know that we all kind of need to be together on that issue, and make sure that we're all putting our best foot forward while at the same time standing up for what we believe in.
Correct. Yeah, for sure.
So sheep, you're a sheep conservation organization enigma. We're talking Wild Sheep Foundation, Wild Sheep Society of BC. Is it Wild Sheep Society Alberta? Is that what it is? Yeah.
No, it's Wild Sheep Foundation Alberta. So they're a direct chapter.
Yep. Nice. Yeah. You're involved in all of them.
Pretty much, in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. What's sort of the pressing issue in the sheep world right now? I know, I know my guys, Wild Sheep Society BC. I know we have some pressing disease issues and stuff like that. And right now, with the latest forest fires, I know the sheep are going to take a hit up there. What's going on in sheepland?
I would say, certainly the disease element is the strongest one right now, with the greatest impacts of population. I work a lot and have worked a lot, especially in BC, with that. I am currently working actually with the Alberta government to create some literature for communicating to the general public about the concerns that we have with MOVI, as we call it, Mycoplasma ovi pneumoniae, which is a kind of a supplemental disease that allows other more common diseases to impact the lungs of sheep and kill them. And we've done some really significant research, sort of created and started by Dr. Tom Besser down in Washington, to identify that criteria or that species of disease that impacts sheep specifically, and was carried through domestic sheep from European settlement. And now we're starting to get more into the realization of what we can do to correct that impact. And Wild Sheep Society of BC, fortunately, is being involved heavily in doing some on-the-ground management of carriers of the Movie disease. They're, with some of the new testing protocols, they're able to get fairly instantaneous results, so they can capture and test sheep in any population and start to remove some of the carriers that are inevitably killing many of the, especially the lambs of the year. In the Fraser Valley there, over the last several years, they've done lots of assessment there. They have now gone to the stage of doing the capture and testing of individuals in that group and eliminating some of the carriers of that disease. And the preliminary results are amazing of the natal, the ability for some of the lambs to now continue on, and the sustainability of that herd or those herds in that area of the one that they're doing right now is increased from zero lamb recruitment rate to, I think it was 70% or something in the last mission that they had done. They're actually going to do, or just finished some ground surveys with volunteers to count the survival rate of lambs in those areas. And then obviously down in Okanagan right now with the California bighorns, they're dealing with some disease issues. Again, Movie that is seems to have come through from Washington. I have been involved in some of the Vassaw herd where they've done some culling there and testing, and certainly it's a factor there. Though fortunately in those areas at this point it appears as though it's not all age die-offs, but simply recruitment that's getting hit. So the lambs are dying within a couple of months of being born. I was out there like 5 weeks ago in an area where there was roughly 10 lambs. I was out there 2 weeks ago, just prior to coming out to the goat survey, and there was only 2 lambs left in that particular area. So that as we assess, or as the government, through the help of Wild Sheep Society, assesses that situation, I suspect there could be another program initiated in that region also to try to cull any carriers to help the lamb recruitment out in the future, and try and grow those herds back a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's super interesting. Yeah, I, a lot of that stuff is just mind blowing, when you start looking at it, and the work that Wild Sheep Society, Wild Sheep Foundation, and and I mean, all of their regional chapters do is really phenomenal when you start looking at the results that they're actually moving the needle.
Yeah. Yeah. They just came out of a chapters and affiliates down in Idaho, and they did a tour, jet boat tour down the Snake River, I believe it is. Cool. And showed some of the results there, because Dr. Tom Besser was involved very heavily in that region. And the recruitment has gone from 0 to, whatever it is now, and sustainable populations are very evident in those regions. So, yeah, they're definitely moving the needle and moving it everywhere now that we start to understand some of the issues and how to address them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and some of it awesome. Also now is involved in regulation. BC, for instance, and some of the provinces like the Yukon have started to really get the government involved, government agricultural divisions involved in creating policy that creates separation of domestic sheep and wild sheep, to create buffer zones to lessen the impacts that disease has. Obviously, BC, because they are the only region that has stone sheep, is especially vulnerable to significant die-off because of disease. So these sorts of strategies that we're trying to initiate through political means and agricultural awareness is certainly something that's very, very important as well, to stop what could be very devastating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. It's great, that the conservation organizations like Wild Sheep Foundation and Society and RMGA exist. I mean, doing a great job. I would be upset with myself if I didn't ask you what's on the schedule for this year for you for fun stuff, for going out hunting.
Well, I have had an invitation to cross the sea and attend a hunt over in Tajikistan in November. So cool. Being that I have not done any such thing that's quite that extravagant, that should be a very culturally diverse and informative and educational event. I'm going with a great friend of mine from down in Calgary that also was a great friend of Dr. Geist's, and he's invited me down, and we're going to chase some ibex there and try and integrate into the cultural experience that I'm sure that is going to be a blessing for sure.
That's awesome. That'll be super fun. Yeah, I think when we were at the goat count, you were saying that the most dangerous part of that hunt is, I think, taxiing from the airport to where you start hunting.
I think it's the typical thing in some of those regions that the extensive amount of ground travel in some pretty formidable areas is certainly one of the greater threats. Most people try and assimilate some of those Asian areas as dangerous from a political perspective, but in reality, it's the same as as most things. Travel by vehicle is certainly the most dangerous. Oddly, as a welder in my past, I did a lot of hot tapping, which is welding on live lines, and people used to always gasp and groan at that and ask, how do you do that? It's so dangerous, whatever. And I used to tell them the same thing, is my trip to and from this job is certainly statistically more dangerous than welding on live piping. So it's all about perspective.
That's funny. Oh, that's awesome. What about locally? What about in Alberta?
Well, I will continue as much time as I get to do follow all of the ruts and get involved in any photography. I think maybe in the next couple of days I'll head over to Jasper there and take in the last of the antler growth in velvet for the elk. And I've got a new puppy coming this weekend, so it'll probably slow down the ability to do
That's exciting.
New and crazy stuff, but it'll be an adventure in itself, and create another partner for doing a lot of these exploring and fun things out in the wilderness with.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. Any plans to come out to BC for any photography or hunting stuff?
Inevitably, I will be there. I was actually intending to join another stone sheep hunt this year, as I did last year. But my partner there had a work schedule that interfered, unfortunately, with that. So I guess that sort of allowed me to do this Tajikistan hunt. But I certainly will be back there to attend one of those hunts and photography at a regular pace. Get involved as much as I can. I might even be out for that first sheep count in the Okanagan there. If it lines up with my schedule, I may just slip out there for that, because it's something I'm very interested in.
Nice. Yeah, that's cool country too.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay, last question, and it's going to be a loaded one, okay?
Oh boy.
Favorite it's actually not crazy. Favorite hunt to date? A guy that's been many places and seen many things, and you've got photos of all kinds of stuff that everybody's dreaming of on your Instagram there. Favorite hunt or favorite trip to date?
That's difficult. And interestingly enough, I'm going to associate it with a predator hunt. I was able to make a successful hunt in BC of a grizzly bear prior to them closing it. And the interesting thing about that hunt is it was kind of an exploratory hunt to start with. A friend of mine that owned part of an outfitting business wanted to do an exploratory spring hunt to determine whether that region that they were in, which was quite remote, would be able to sustain a spring hunt for grizzly bears. And through actually what ended up being 3 trips into that region, we both discovered that a spring hunt was probably not practical for most hunters, because it involved a significant hike into the area. And I ended up having to go, like I said, 3 times. And the relationship that we built with this outfitter, a friend of mine, and the amount that we got to experience in that area really sewed up the experience of that hunt. I ended up eventually harvesting a bear in fall of the following year that we had first gone there, and did a fly-in, and was able to experience an amazing salmon run in the Nass River system, and the entire element of hunting bears along streams with all of that, nature saturation going on, and ultimately, as an end result, taking a bear as well. was just a great experience with a great friend. And, it's what hunting is. Even prior to the hunt, I was kind of, as hunters do, kind of trying to understand my own feelings about going on a grizzly bear hunt. And I understand the nature of wildlife management and the need to do our part to manage wildlife through hunting as a tool. And I had come to that realization and enjoyed that hunt immensely. So that's probably at this point one of the most favorite hunts, but it's hard. I mean, even the stone sheep hunt that I did last year, we were unsuccessful, but saw and photographed some great sheep and had a great time too. So it's hard to really nail down one, but that one is very memorable.
Okay, I lied. Not the last question, because I have another one. And I think this one, it might be the most important question. So a guy like you, Darryn, that can speak eloquently about hunting and has the boots on the ground experience, knowledge, you are tied in with biologists and conservation organizations. A question that I often ask biologists when I have them on is, how do we answer the question in a meaningful way of why do you hunt? What's the reason for hunting? What's the utility? What is, there's a common trend right now, and I don't know if it's dishonest or not, but there's a common trend right now where people say, "Oh, I hunt for meat," and the only reason is meat, and that's the answer they give folks. So I guess what my question is when you're speaking to a non-hunter, and at that point you're the face of hunting to that person, how do we answer that question? Why do you hunt? Why is it good? Why is it necessary?
That is probably the most difficult question that we have to answer, because as hunters, it is so innate within us that we ourselves typically don't even ask that questions of ourselves, because it's just it's born in us. It's like I said, my parents weren't hunters, yet I am, and there's nothing I can do about it. I always will be. I don't need to kill something in order to enjoy, and that's probably something that we need to communicate more of, and we are probably moving that needle with some individuals like Mark Hall and his podcast, and Blood Origins, and some of the communications that Jim Shockey does to help people understand that it's about the experience and not necessarily about the killing. I certainly enjoy the benefits every day. I had a beautiful moose roast last night and enjoyed immensely. I think it's so difficult. I think our responsibility more than ever is communicating to people where we came from, the fact that we were grown of hunters. Our society exists because of hunters. I think it's important that we forego the previous decade of media or social media that suggested it was all about the kill. It's about a lifestyle. I think that when I get and I spend a lot of time with photographers as well. Many of them are non-hunters, and you watch their fascination with photography, and it's exactly the same experience. It's the hunt without the killing part, and I think if we can sort of bring those elements together and make or help people understand that is the nature of people, is to have this incredible fascination for wildlife and connect that. I think that that's what's going to help people understand this innate nature that we have and make it noble again. Mm-hmm. That it's not something to be ashamed of, and it's kind of a part of why some people claim that they hunt only just for the meat, and it's probably inaccurate in most senses, because it is it's a desire that causes us to lay awake at night and plan and go through all of these fitness goals and stuff to achieve some of the things that we intend. It's a drive that it helps some of us actually maintain our health in that element. So it's multifaceted. I think it's going to be a task for us to communicate properly, and I think there's some people that are very much on board with making those changes in the way we communicate, and I hope that myself am going to be part of that, helping to create a new perspective about our influence and the care and concern that we have for wildlife, and the investment that we make daily in ensuring that our future generations have the same potential that we do to go into the parks or into wild spaces and see wild animals the way we have.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of what always brings me back to that question is, in my professional career, I regularly get the "you're a hunter" when people find out I hunt, and it's the first thing they ask. Oh, why do you hunt? Like, is it like, what's the reasoning? Is it okay? Like what's the deal? And in that moment, you are the face of hunting in their eyes. You're representing all of us, So I like to ask guys like you, guys and gals like you, that know what they're talking about and know the importance of that answer in that moment, and still remain genuine, I
think fortunately for me, photography has also helped me to create a bridge to non-hunters and help them to understand that it's not solely about harvesting animals from a perspective of a trophy nature anyways. I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with the trophy nature either.
No.
I mean, we certainly, that's an element of it, but certainly not all of it. And certainly hunters are at different stages throughout their experience in hunting. So it reflects on everybody somewhat differently.
Absolutely. I had this exact conversation with my brother from a different podcast, Adam Yonke, yesterday. And, all of our answers are different. All of our stories are different. And the one main thing that remains the same for all of us, I think, is that we want what's best for the animals. We want them to remain on the landscape. And we're damn proud that hunting and conservation through hunting saved a lot of these species.
Exactly. And we'll continue to save. We will be one of the primary contributors to making sure that continues on, without a doubt.
Darryn, you're the man. How do folks find you?
Google Darryn Epp, you'll find me. Yeah. I'm on Instagram, Facebook. I used to have a webpage, but I think that lapsed. So usually, it's not that terribly difficult to find me.
Yeah, it's at Darryn Epp on Instagram for folks that won't see the announcement on my page. Darryn, I really appreciate you burning an hour with me and sharing my my morning coffee with me here. It's always a pleasure to chat with you. And my eldest daughter wanted me to tell your wife hello. So there you go.
Yeah, it was great. And thank you for your part in ensuring that we get our message out in a truthful way and continue on the course.
For sure. Thank you. Thanks for listening to the podcast. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and leave us a review. If you want to support the podcast, please check out the gear on our website at wildernesslocals.net.